Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for November 13th. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, if I can have the future Captain Phil Dale open us up in prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering in this wonderful country of ours, in our community that desires to be obedient to you. Father, I ask your blessings on this gathering this evening, that all that is said and done, discussed, considered, debated, whatever, will bring honor to you. Thank you for your love, the love of Jesus Christ who cares for all, and thank you for sending him to us and taking care of us in ways that we can't. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to do the consent agenda, the agenda committee reports. Actually, number 2, the approval of the agenda. I just have one item I'd like to switch. 8F, request for a waiver of BZA fees for Birch Point Church to go to 8A, and just swap the two. So we'll put vouchers of payment to 8F. That's it. I look for a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery is absent. Mr. Clements is absent. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Item 3, the consent agenda, the agenda committee reports. A, the committee recommends to the full board to approve and place on file the minutes of the October 16, 2018 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Item 4, presentations. 4A, swearing-in ceremony for the Bedford Township Firefighters.
Good evening. Tonight we're swearing in our first 3 full-time firefighter paramedics. It would be firefighter paramedic Mike Konitsky, firefighter paramedic Don Marsh, and firefighter paramedic Sean McBride. If you'd come up, please.
Let's go front. That way you're in front of the camera. You don't have your backs to the camera. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the state of Michigan, and Bedford Township? Do you affirm that you will follow the rules and regulations of the fire department and obey the commands of the officer in charge of emergency calls and drills? That you will honestly and impartially perform the duties of a firefighter and respect and protect the honor and dignities of the Bedford Township Fire Department to the best of your ability, so help you God? Congratulations.
I'd ask that Mike's wife, Michelle, come up for the pinning of the badge. I also ask that Don's wife, Lori, would come up for Don's pinning. and Sean's wife, Carolyn. Thank you.
Chief, you want to do a group picture real quick? With the board, let's do a quick little group picture.
Since these are our very first full-time firefighters.
Yeah. Up close and personal?
Up close and personal.
Can you see it, Paul? Switch?
No, I'm fine.
No? Okay, very cool. And item B, promotion of Phil Dale to captain.
You want to come up? Phil's our administrative lieutenant now. He's being promoted to captain.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the state of Michigan, and the members you serve with as an officer of the Bedford Township Fire Department? Your fundamental duty is to serve the people, to protect, safeguard, and preserve life, health, and property against fire, and to maintain a proficiency in the fire service. As a captain, you will uphold the standards of your profession and position, and never allow your personal feelings nor danger to self deter you from your responsibilities as a firefighter and officer. And will you lead your fire company to the best of your ability with fairness and without prejudice, so help you God? Congratulations.
And Phil's wife Kathy will be presenting his badge and pinning in tonight.
You might need a hammer to pound that in with.
Oh, you missed the picture.
I was gonna kiss you, but I can't reach you.
I'm not giving you a kiss. Good guy.
Thank you.
It's pretty exciting having our first full-time paramedics on board, and we're excited about it, so welcome aboard. So I'm sure the community is excited too, because the response time will be even quicker, so. Okay, item 5 is public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items. Come on up. Okay, seeing none. Staff reports, 6A, request for approval of the advanced life support resolution. Chief, come on back. That was quick.
Yeah, a number of months ago when we set out to increase our level of service from basic life support to advanced life support, one of the things we intended to do and we present tonight, Mr. Goldsmith has worked on a resolution for advanced life support for in the township. I believe you've got it in your board packets, and we're just requesting approval of the resolution tonight.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported. Discussion? Mr. Frederick?
Mr. Chairman, this resolution was discussed at the Fire Advisory Board on several occasions. And the key to all of this is, inasmuch as our fire department now has been approved for advanced life support, The key in all of this in terms of transport is at the discretion of the incident commander. And it is not our intention to get involved indirectly with the Monroe County ambulance issue. And so they're happy with our language. And again, it's only in those issues where the incident commander believes it's appropriate and necessary to transport that transport will occur.
Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 5-0. Okay, item 8, I'm sorry, item 6B, request for approval to purchase 4 NFPA compliant Bullard NXT Thermal Imaging cameras from Dingy's Fire Company. Chief?
Yeah, this was identified as part of our equipment replacement plan that we presented back in, I believe, January to you folks. And it has been one of our highest priorities, replacing some roughly 18-year-old thermal imaging cameras. With our cost recovery efforts through the year, we're a little better budget-wise than we expected to be, and we think this is one of the most important items that we can present to you and request at this time, as it will update our ability to quickly locate victims inside a fire and/or quickly locate the fire itself. So it's a matter of resident safety. We think it's really important, and we bring it to you tonight with the hopes that you'll approve this purchase.
Okay, questions for Chief?
No question, just a quick comment. Chief, being out at your training tower, watching your firefighters out there inside the building, and I have not been in one, don't ever want to be when it's on fire, but this only makes sense. It's not only the citizens we protect, it's the people that are protecting them. So if we don't protect our firefighters, they're not any good to the citizens either. So this, in my mind, is a good investment. You've budgeted well. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal from Dingy's Fire Company at a cost of $39,651.80 for the thermal imaging cameras.
I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported. Discussion?
I didn't realize they had 18-year-old thermal cameras.
I believe the originals were bought through a grant with the county right around
Probably.
2000.
Mr. Fredericks?
I remember when the first ones came on board, it was really great technology then. This was brought up again at the Fire Advisory Board. The Fire Advisory Board recommended this board that we step forward and get these, not only for the safety of our own firefighters at the scene, but also in assistance to our citizens in this community.
Okay.
Just for the citizens who don't know what this camera is, can you just explain so everyone realizes why we're spending almost $40,000 on cameras?
Sure. So the cameras themselves, they pick up heat signatures. So prior to using thermal imaging cameras in the fire service, we were essentially blind when we were inside a fire where it was smoke. We would rely on our sense of feel to try and search for victims or search for the fire. We had to get pretty close before we would get to the fire. Now with these cameras, we have the ability not only for our crews that go inside, but even the ability for the officers when they get off the fire truck and walk around to do their initial assessment, to use the camera to maybe even identify where the fire is inside and or any victims inside through the windows of the structures. And then again, instead of the firefighters entering the structure and not being able to see it, relying on the sense of feel, to be able to use the cameras to quickly identify heat signatures that would be victims inside the fire or the seat of the fire itself. It's hard to describe the difference in working with or without them. So it definitely makes our firefighters more efficient. It makes us the job that they do safer for them, as well as it allows us to gain access to victims faster. So we've got one. We have requested one for each of the lead engines that we've got, and then of course one for the ladder truck that it comes in. But we carry one on each engine because we can never tell which fire apparatus will get to the fire first, and we certainly want it to be with the first crew that goes inside a structure that's burning.
Thank you. Even though we all know, because we've approved them in the past, it's just nice for the citizens to know what we're actually approving.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Mr.
Oh, Mr. Frederick?
One other comment, and the chief brought this up the other night at the meeting. You could quickly find an unconscious person, in a fire situation and get there, rather than crawling your hands and knees and searching with your hands, they can find them very quickly. So it's a great advantage to our firefighters when they get to a scene.
You're pretty user-friendly, these new ones?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, could you call the roll?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Item 6C, discussion of fire station number 1. Chief?
So the ongoing mold issue that we've been encountering up at Station 1, we've got the results back from the mold testing, and it was provided to the board. We also have a proposal from that company for $1,200 to develop a remediation plan, that being a recommendation as to how to rid the building of the mold. Now, in order to send out for bids to different companies, the actual cleanup, we need to have this plan developed by these experts that will allow companies to bid on the work so that we can go ahead and move forward with the bidding process and hopefully eventually return the station, or the portions of the station that we're having the ongoing mold issue, back to service and back to use by the department.
Now, this same company that's going to be doing this, they wouldn't be allowed to bid on the actual work, would they?
Correct, they don't actually do the work. They said that they could assist us if necessary by providing some different companies that would want to bid on the work locally. And they would assist us if we would like in reviewing the bid to make sure that it meets the specifications. But generally speaking, it would be similar to like maybe an architectural firm or an engineering firm developing a bid that could be sent out then. So no, they wouldn't do any of the work.
And in reading the report, it sounds like, this roof has been lowering over years, with the puddling that was on it. It just finally gave way, when I think it had rain or a snow load or something like that. But it's something that's been going on, it sounds like, from the report for years. It finally just gave way, so. Any more questions? Mr. Frederick?
I read this report several times, and I thought we used to have all of our roofs checked annually. And as I looked at a couple of these photographs, there's substantial ponding on these roofs. Now, I'll go back to my prior life. I used to defend an awful lot of cases where there was ponding on these kind of roofs, and they will leak. So we need to, if we're going to go forward with this, part of the plan should be some form of annual inspection of the roof so that we spot these things early. And secondly, I see some metal distribution systems for heat, ventilation, and air conditioning. When you run cold air through a metal duct with no insulation, you're going to have condensation up a storm. So that's another issue that should be looked at as we go forward. So two things. One, if we get the roof repaired, and if it's repaired properly, then we need to make sure that there's no ponding on it from time to time, and look carefully at the distribution systems to make sure that they're insulated, if at all possible. Thank you.
Just so you know, the roof has been repaired.
Yeah, well, we need to really
we
be
didn't want
careful
it-
with that,
we
because
didn't
that's
want
where
it
the
leaking.
leaks, that's where the leaks start.
Any more questions? Mr. Steiner?
Since the roof's been repaired, then I did see where we have some issues of the actual drainage up there. Has that been taken into consideration with the roof work, or is that something we still have to?
The roof work was just patched, so it stopped
Okay, so
leaking.
that's just patched.
Just patched.
Does that mean, that's one thing, of course, I'm sure they'll develop that in the plan. Because that sounds like that's a major part of the issue too. It wasn't just weather, it's ponding from condensation from the units on top of the
The
building.
real issue is the unit should have never been put on that roof,
Right.
right on the roof. There should have been structural beams spread out across from block to block and put on the beams. But when
Right.
you put a unit of that size on a beam, on a structure that's 70, 80 years old, it might give way.
Absolutely. And some of the mold types that I saw in this report, I've never heard of. And of course, we can't pronounce half of them either, but it's definitely an issue that we are in the right direction, that if we are gonna make this facility viable again, we can't wait around. We have to move on this.
Yeah, and I would add that this is part of a broader, some broader work on station planning and long-term planning. We've been working pretty hard, the department members, the officers, and the fire authority on providing a really good comprehensive plan and projecting a plan out over the next 20, 30 years as far as station needs go. Even as we continue to develop that plan to get the area back in use, to get the mold cleaned out and make sure that it doesn't present a health hazard to the firefighters or to the public, is certainly a key step regardless of what the future planning and what we develop in the fire authority and bring to you folks, hopefully as a recommendation before the end of the year.
Any more questions for the chief?
You had mentioned there was a proposal for, what, $1,200 for them to prepare a study? Is that something we need to vote on tonight? Or, I don't think I've seen it.
I'm not sure who they emailed it to. I have a copy if anybody wants to see it. It's just a short 2-page.
Oh, okay.
You have it right, is that the same thing?
No, I
No.
think theirs was a
You
separate
added
one.
to it?
I know they emailed it to yourself and Al. I was copied. I wasn't sure who else received it.
Well, I think we might as well approve that tonight
Yeah,
and get
there's-
it started.
Yeah, it just came in today. There was a $1,200 study that they need to do.
Get it started.
Do you want to see it?
Oh, boy.
Those are the exact same ones as they included
know.
in the first one, so that hasn't changed.
Is that what you're recommending, to move forward with the $1,200 study, right?
Yeah, at some point, as Clerk Hirschberger said, we received that this morning with the
It's-
or with the cost associated to move forward with the remediation plan, so it's certainly the board's pleasure whether we want to move forward now or review it.
It's part of the process with mold.
But it is yes, part of the process. The next logical step's going to be to have a plan developed to address it and then send it out for bid so that we can get some companies to actually address and clean the area.
Pennsylvania.
And pretty much the building's unusable till we clean this up, correct?
Large areas of the building, yeah. We've been able to utilize the radio room and the back bays of the station.
But with the HAVC unit there, doesn't it spread the mold from all the rooms, circulates it?
We were fortunate that there's actually two systems up there, one that controls the front, the conference room, the radio room, and the entryway. And I don't believe they found any mold or any issue up there. The back portion of the building there, where they've got the pictures with the larger unit that caused the problem with the roof initially, is where we were having the mold issues. But to the best of what I've seen in the report, the two areas hadn't caused a problem in the front as of now.
Mr. Frederick?
Is that $1,200 all in? This is the $1,200, it's all in, not to exceed? Because there's
yes, that's correct.
several other issues in here, like $85 a day for cars and this, that, and the other things. So
Yeah, the $1,200 is to.
not to exceed.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I've just given a quick look at this thing, and since they already know the hazards, they discovered them.
Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the $1,200 to move forward to develop a remediation plan by CEC Corporation. Again, not to exceed $1,200 as proposed.
And one amendment, that the contract be construed by the laws of Michigan, not Pennsylvania.
Agreed.
Friendly amendment.
Do you support that?
I changed it.
Are you supporting it?
Yes.
Okay, we have a support discussion. Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good vacation, Chief.
Thank you.
Item 8, 8A, request for a waiver of BZA fees for Bridgepoint Church. Come on up, Mr.
Might as well wait a second.
Terry's been overseeing the Bridgepoint Church project for the ball field, and has got it looking pretty cool over there, so.
Didn't mean to clear the room, I'm sorry.
Yeah, was it something we said?
Complicated request, I suppose,
Something you said, huh?
apparently.
Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you for hearing my request for a waiver. How should I proceed with this? To explain it or ask?
Yeah,
a
you just
question?
kind of explain what's going on, and you guys are 501, correct?
Right.
You're a nonprofit, so.
Right. Yeah, I went to the church, asked for approval for a complete reconstruction of the baseball diamond, which is about 48 years old. It was in a woeful condition. We're putting together for a Little League travel team to bring in teams from outside of this community, people from Lucky, Perrysburg, Adrian, Monroe, to play our team in travel baseball. We have a practical difficulty because we weren't able to move the baseball field in the 13 acres there where the old church was. The new church is going to go there, so I had no place to go but to build it there, reconstruct it there. We chose a fencing height, and I maybe misunderstood. I thought because this was a church and not a residence, and it would be a special use condition, I looked at the baseball diamond, and many people have played ball before, and the height restriction on the fence was 6 feet. The fence height there with this old baseball park was 4 feet, or 4.5 feet. Neither of those heights would work at all for either, whether it's softball or baseball. So I chose to go with a 10-foot-high fence down both lines, sidelines, and a netting another 10-foot high up. I don't know how many of you have driven past the ballpark or not. In an effort to, keep it's all focused on safety, in an effort to keep the baseballs off of the neighbor to the north, who we have talked to, and he seems thrilled with that because a lot of softballs have caused damage there. So we're 20 feet high there. We're 20 feet high well past third base to protect the cars up and down Lewis Avenue. The backstop was 10 feet in the old construction. It's now 20 feet high with a 6-foot-high cantilever. So I have to go back in front of the variance board to ask for a variance for that. Also, we have dugouts that we've put in place to protect the players as well as try and keep the sound down as it relates to the noise and coming from the players and et cetera. So I'm here asking for a waiver for those fees. I'm using public and private money, not church money, because they have another responsibility to continue to raise money to build the church, which they're well on their way, and I believe that construction will start, I want to say, the first quarter of next year. So I've raised money through that to do the work that we've done, and I don't know if I think you've seen it, but it's turned out very nice. We've also chosen black fencing in an effort to be a good neighbor and be aesthetically pleasing to the traffic up and down the highway as well as the neighborhood. So with this being a 501c3, I'm asking to waive the fees for this variance that I need to seek, in that the fence height at 6 feet would be woefully short and wouldn't protect anyone. And I've gone above and beyond. We could have put up, 6-foot galvanized fence, but that wouldn't have worked safety-wise, nor would have looked very good. So that's why I'm here. That's what I'm respectfully asking your consideration of.
Okay, board members have any questions? Mr. Frederick?
This is not going to interfere with 3B baseball in any
It
way.
is not.
That's good.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I've
Well,
been
3B
asked-
baseball has been around for a long time here.
I know that.
Yeah.
Both my kids or grandkids have played there, and I have
Good.
2 others coming up. No, it absolutely not. This is travel baseball. Has nothing to do. As a matter of fact, we're going to use Scott Young's umpires out of 3B to umpire our games.
Yeah. That's my only question.
Okay, any more? Mr. Francis?
This is a 501c3 organization separate from the church that's going to be raising the money to fund this, to build it on the church's property.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So the church will own it
Yes, sir.
and insure it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In exchange for my leasehold improvements, while they're allowing my team to play there for 10 years.
Is it going to be restricted to just that league, or are others in the community allowed to use the field?
It's restricted to the travel baseball program, yes.
The church will use it too for softball and stuff like that.
Church league?
The church's home team will use it, yes.
Okay.
But it isn't open if your question is it open to anyone to come and play on it, the answer is no. Frankly, because of the investment that we have in it and the control and security of the field as well as damage.
I'm assuming you have some sort of an arrangement with the church.
I do, 10-year.
Lease agreement of some sort.
Yes, sir, for the
That's
lease.
between you and the church.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a problem with waiving
Is that a motion?
yes.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is supported, discussion? Seeing none, could you-
Just a quick
Oh,
comment.
go ahead.
When you go to the zoning appeals board,
Yes, sir.
the application, have you submitted yet?
I have,
Okay, so is it submitted under the 501 or submitted by the church
by the
itself?
church.
Okay,
I
that's
was-
what I was assuming, because that's
Yep.
a technicality, you have to make sure that's correct.
Yes, sir. Karen caught that one.
Okay.
I have the documents, it allows me to speak on behalf of the church. So I originally filled it out that way, and Karen caught that, so we now have the church as the petitioner, if that's the way I could say it.
That's correct.
And I speak
It's
on
their-
behalf of the
It's their
church.
dirt.
Yes,
Are you on December's zoning appeals?
I am.
See you there.
Oh, thank you. I get to do this again. Thank you, sir.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Yep, have a good night. Okay, item 8B, request for approval of a blanket waiver from the Development Design Standards Ordinance Number 65 for piping material.
We've got vouchers.
No, we
I
switched
swapped
them.
it to,
F.
Swap.
I didn't realize you moved them down.
No,
I was
yeah.
just thinking you moved the other one up.
I can.
Never mind, go ahead. That's good.
Mr. Frederick.
Ms. Frederick?
I have the motion for 8B.
Okay.
This request for a waiver has come before this board on several occasions, and I've constantly harped at the planning department to fix up ordinance, Design Development Standards Ordinance 65, and they've had some problems up north in organizations. So the planning department has requested that the township board grant a waiver so that it doesn't come here every time there's a new development. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Bedford Township Board of Trustees grant a waiver under Township Development Design Standard Ordinance Number 65 for types of piping material, requests for storm drainage systems, drainage improvement systems, sanitary service systems, and water supply systems in Bedford Township, provided the Monroe County Drain Commissioner and Township Engineer approve the type of piping material to be installed. Installation of the piping material is in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications and instructions, and the granting of the variance from Ordinance 65 shall not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the area in which the materials are installed as determined by the Monroe County Drain Commissioner and Township Engineer. This waiver shall be in effect until amendments of the Township Development Design Standard Ordinance 65 respecting the types of piping material for storm drainage systems, draining improvement, sanitary sewer systems, and water supply systems is approved by the Bedford Township Board of Trustees.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Hirschberger. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. I'm going to skip C and give Mr. Graham a few more minutes to get here. We'll go to D, request to approve the Bedford Township, actually, I'm sorry. Was a,
Go to E.
okay, so request for approval of the SEMCOG 2018-2019 membership.
A.
We have this before us. SEMCOG has been a great resource. We utilize them constantly. We just received a grant. I highly recommend we continue the relationship. Mr. Frederick?
Well, of course, this township has been a member of SEMCOG for years, and you have recently been appointed to some important committees. As you've already said, this is an important resource for us. I move that we approve the membership dues for the period November 15th, 2018 to November 15th, 2019 in the amount of $1,991.
Support.
Okay, motion and supported. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Item A, request for approval, or item F, request for approval of vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $402,353.36. Fire District, $46,889.76. Police Fund, $99,932.70. Park Fund, $13,084.33. Transit System Fund, $11,546. Library Fund, $13,732.15. Water Revenue Fund, $7,400. Indian Acres SAD, $659,478.18. Mohawk Trails SAD, $71,977.37. Downtown Development Authority, $2,851.91. Sewer O&M Fund, $408,514.06. Trust and Agency Fund, $1,044, for a grand total of $1,738,803.82.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Mr. Francis?
That's a large total. We usually don't have them that big. It's made up of 4 or 5 things that add up to that, and I could read those off if you'd like. One is the quarterly billing from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department for our law enforcement. That's just short of $238,000. We have some election workers that we paid for the election last week. That's a little over $21,000. The bi-monthly bill from the Drain Commission for operating our sewer plant, that's $385,000. And 2 items that are special assessments, the one to Indian Acres, which is $659,000 and some change, and Mohawk Trails, which is $71,000 and some change. Both of those will be repaid to us over time as the folks pay for that. So that's why those add up to $1,376,000 out of the $1,007,000. So just a little explanation.
Could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 5-0. Okay, we'll go to item 8C, request to permit Leonard, Graham, and Goldsmith prepare the Bedford Erie Sanitary Sewer Agreement Amendment. This is actually on their agenda tonight to approve.
I'll be glad to take it.
So if it doesn't approve at their meeting, there's really no need for us to prove it here. Tom Graham is at their meeting, and he was supposed to be here for this meeting, so we can either move forward with it.
Well, I can explain what this is. So this is similar to an arrangement that was between Bedford Township, Earl Kuzno, and Erie Township about 15 years ago. There was a discussion with respect to the extension of sewer along Dixie Highway so that Erie could develop a portion of a property, which, by the way, there's a section of it belongs to Bedford Township. The transfer of sewer capacity from the citizens who lived on Lotus Drive was the key. Mr. Bonkowski at that time sent letters to all of the folks on Lotus Drive and said, you know, you're entitled to have sewers run down your street if you wish, but you're going to have to pay for them. I'm going to give you so much time to respond to me as to whether or not you want sewer down your street, because that's where the original dedication of the sewer capacity was for. A vast majority of the folks on Lotus Drive said, no, we don't want it. And so there was an arrangement at that time that the sewer capacity that was to go to Lotus Drive would be used for the economic development of property on the east side of, on the west side of Dixie Highway up to as far as Stearns Road. Now I see by this document, I think all of you had a briefing, that this agreement will extend farther north. And within the document itself, the area in which is being described is almost as far as Benoit Road, but it's south of all that. The agreement here simply says that Bedford Township and Erie will agree to extend the sewer if and when economic development comes along, and that the capacity of the sewer with respect to economic development shall not exceed, whatever, 125 residential units. And when that amount of capacity is committed to the development along Dixie Highway, that's the end. I think that there's some advantage to Bedford Township in this, in that if there is economic development along Dixie Highway, some of those people who go to work there may well live here. Secondly, it will put additional capacity in use, which they will pay for. There are five, is that right? Yeah, five companies that are currently on the sewer over there that will not see a change in their costs. Erie is the one who actually bills them. We send our bill to Erie. They in turn send the bill out to the individual companies. I would recommend that we go forward with this, providing, of course, that Erie comes along. Here comes Tom. I'm just finishing up. And so my recommendation is that we proceed with the sanitary sewer agreement amendment to not only assist Bedford in this, but assist Erie and make this a good economic development opportunity.
Okay, come on up, Tom. Come on up. We've just kind of gotten,
I just explained it.
So you already got to this point in the agenda then, right?
well, we tabled it as long as we could.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
We did find out how to shorten meetings, though. We don't ask an attorney to show up.
Well, have a seat at the microphone.
Erie did approve it.
Oh, we don't care about that. I explained, Tom, about where the original capacity came from Lotus. I talked to them, the fact that it's now extended beyond the area that expended for economic development is expanded north of Stearns Road, where it used to be stopped at Stearns Road, that it's up to south of Benor Road, that the 5 individual companies who are presently on the sewer system will not be affected in any way. Everyone who ties into the new sewer system, either Erie pays for it or those companies pay for it. We are not going to be obligated in any way to pay for the extension of the sewer. And you've drafted this.
I drafted it, and so thank you, Lamar. And you know, the new thinking, and I see this because I'm working with the city of Toledo on the water arrangements involving all of their municipalities and us. And it was an opportunity for people to review other options and what have you. And what comes out loud and clear is that the day of having every single municipality having their own water system or their own utility system is too costly. Regionalism is the best way to go. And this is just a small step, but those 5 existing users that have already been hooked up for years and years and years, they will continue to pay but not be obligated to pay any surcharge. And then the 2 vacant parcels will pay a minor 5% surcharge. And so there is no sharing of property taxes, as was discussed in the beginning, which was very complicated and for a very small gain and not really worth it. And so I'm recommending it. I think it's a good thing. And we are not obligated to pay to put the line in. The line is to be put in, we think, by some potential future user. The line will be owned by the system, and which is what we want. And as I understand it, and in talking with Tim Sergo, who's here tonight to speak to you, the system, and there seems to be a thinking that the system having new users is a good thing for the system. I mean, you're doing a major improvement to your treatment plant, and there is plenty of capacity, and having more users is really a good thing for the system, as I understand it. And so the economic part of it, I asked Tim Lake to come down tonight as well, and he could speak to that. But the economic benefit, there is a Bedford parcel involved here, and it's just as a good thing for the regional area with jobs, and development begets development. And so I think it's a positive thing, and I of course recommend it. And since I made them come tonight, I would ask you to at least let them speak a little bit, Tim, and then Tim, well, either Tim, but Tim Sergo first. He's the Deputy Drain Commissioner, as you know, so he can.
Thank you.
Tim Sergo, Deputy Drain Commissioner, representing Dave Thompson, the Drain Commissioner, and the County of Monroe. I guess Tom covered most of it. Do you have any questions of, technical questions of any such? The renovations and the improvements have been going on at the plant now. We have a signed contract, and those have started. So for the next 3 years, we'll be there until the project is finished and all the upgrades are made.
I'm excited for the future. We have to start working together with our outlying communities and working with our county in order, to grow as a whole. We have to do things like this, and I'm excited that Erie's on board, and I think it's a good thing. Mr. Francis?
the more users we have in the system will make the increase in costs paid by more people. If there was only one user, it would be a tremendous amount of cost for that one user. But when we're adding users, that drops the cost.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Sergo, just a capacity, so the public understands as well. Compared to residential use, a business use that could potentially go there, just explain to them how sometimes really it's less impact with a business compared to 125 homes with a family of 2, 3, 4, 5 people flushing and using water and showers.
Yeah, absolutely. The industrial customers, some of them do put into the sanitary system, but if that same area was put into homes, there'd be much more flow coming for sanitary to the plant from the homes than it would be from that one industrial customer. And that'll be probably the case here too. There's only a 15-inch line going up 125 there to service that area, so it's not a lot of flow coming our way compared to the big lines that service Bedford as a whole.
And to top it off, I mean, it's the old, you have to build it before they'll come. And, I mean, this won't be fully built out, but we've got to be ready and aggressive to be literally ready for
I think that's
business
right,
and
Tim,
development.
You'll probably want to say that.
And he'll probably bring up the 2020 again and talk about the bridge a little bit and where that's headed. Again, it's just potential for Bedford, Erie, and the surrounding community to have a positive impact if we can have property like this to attract someone.
This is the exact same thing we're doing through the Economic Development Committee. We're preparing our properties, we're getting ahead of the game, because now when somebody's in California looking at this piece of property, there's already an agreement in place. They know where everything is as far as utilities go, and they might be able to just purchase it over the phone instead of, you know what I mean, asking a bunch of questions, getting a meeting together with 35 people, and then coming back, oh, it'll be 2, 3 more weeks before you can answer them questions. We're ready for a company now. Might not be shovel-ready, but it's close.
Reality could be weeks versus months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge to a company. It's a deal breaker to a lot of these bigger companies now. Tim, you can come on up.
Yeah, just Tim Lake with Monroe County BDC. Just to dovetail on that, you're absolutely right. If you approve this tonight and with Erie's approval, it really gets us near shovel ready. So I know in talking to Tim earlier about the construction timeline will match pretty much what a building timeline would on those sites anyway. So this process took near 6, 7, 8 months of discussion in the background and that to get to this point. If you add that on to any type of development or have that risk uncertainty when you're talking to a developer, they're looking at multiple sites throughout the Midwest more than likely. It's just going to drive them to another site, give them just a reason to say no to this particular site. So thank you for giving it consideration. It is a regional effort at the end of the day when we're talking about bringing potential jobs to the area. So, and we certainly hope it means, we can rest assured it's going to mean homes and other things for Bedford Township directly. So with some of the employment that would happen if we get there. We've still got a long way to go.
Just one last comment too, and I want to thank Mr. Graham. The document is simply written. It's not complicated to read. It's understandable, but I just want to thank you for taking the time to personally sit down and review this for the questions that I did have up front. And again, pretty straightforward, but I appreciate your time to do that as well.
Thank you, and it amends an existing agreement, of course, and the existing agreement isn't quite as simple, but really, this is a simple thing. It's extending an existing sewer line in Erie and allowing for our system to serve that area. It's pretty simple, straightforward.
Anybody have any more questions? Mr. Frederick?
This was almost done 15 years ago when Benor Trucking was going to move over. And then the economy went the other way, and so it kind of went away. There's been several companies that looked at the Kuzno property, but remember that's Hoover, I think it's Hoover Ditch or something goes right through the part of it. Hoover, yeah, and that caused Hoover Drain, and that caused a lot of people to kind of go south a little bit. But, Mr. Chairman, I think we're ready to approve this.
Okay, I look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Bedford, I'm adding something, Tom, to your first one, only because of the American Bar Association ethical considerations. I hereby move that the Bedford Township Board waive the conflict of interest between the township and Leonard Graham and Goldsmith, and that W. Thomas Graham and Leonard Graham and Goldsmith PLC be permitted to prepare the Bedford Erie Sanitary Sewer Agreement Amendment on behalf of the Monroe County Drain Commissioner as county agency, Bedford Township, and Erie Township.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Item 8D, request to approve the Bedford Township, Erie Township Third Amendment to the Bedford Township, Erie Township Sewer System. Number 2, extension, Erie Extension Agreement.
Now, on this one, we don't need to have the part about subject to Erie approving it because they approved it.
Okay, discussion?
So all we have to do is take that provision out. So I hereby move that Bedford Township, Erie Township, Third Amendment to the Bedford Township, Erie Township Sewer System Number 2, Erie Extension A Agreement be approved, and that the Township Supervisor and the Township Clerk be authorized to execute the Third Amendment on behalf of the Township.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion?
Thank you.
Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 5-0. Tim, thank you for all your hard work in this.
Yeah, that's hard work, Tom.
It's been a
Thank you.
long time coming. I think it's been 6-8 months, and Tim, appreciate all your guidance and hard work, and Tom, you too. It's been a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions, so.
You know, I never thought about it, but when Tim Lake just said that, if you had to add all that time, and believe me, that time was necessary to get everybody on the same page, but if you added that time into a waiting project, it probably wouldn't have happened.
It's done. Okay, so number 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes. Come on up.
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street, Temperance, Michigan. In September 2018, the Monroe County Sheriff's deputies, contract officers, 4 officers logged a total of 243 hours on patrol and wrote 1 traffic citation. In September 2018, 2 officers logged 171 hours on patrol and wrote 0 traffic citations. If you add those 2 numbers together, it comes out to 414 hours on patrol, and they wrote 1 traffic citation. That's the equivalent of working 17 and a quarter days, 24 hours a day, where there's somebody riding around in this township on patrol with a radar, and they could only find 1 traffic citation, assuming that was written on patrol and not for a traffic accident. If you take the 80/20 costs of that, which is $43.12, that 1 traffic citation cost Bedford Township $17,851.68 for that 1 traffic citation. $17,851.68 for that 1 traffic citation. I don't know how he can justify that. It's impossible for me to think that a police officer could ride around for 17 and a quarter days in Bedford Township and not find only 1 traffic citation. If you think you're getting your money's worth, you're not. That is appalling. I don't know how anyone can justify that. And you know what? Nobody even looks at that. It's just all it is for your information only. And it's pretty sad that an old guy like me has to come up and tell you this, because I'm going to continue to bring these numbers forward so that when we vote on these millages for these officers, the public knows exactly what we're getting. We're not getting the enforcement we should be getting. There's a small town, I was reading an article that was listed in the Gaston Gazette, which is in North Carolina, And the police chief in a small town of about 4,300 people wrote an article and said that if we queried the people in the town as to why the officers in the town wrote speeding tickets, they would say, well, the chief told them to, or they had a quota, or they get money for doing that. And the guy that wrote the article, he said basically, no, that's not why we write tickets here in Cramerton. I think it's a small town here, like 4,300 people. Said that's not why we write the tickets here. We do that to protect the public, to make people aware that they shouldn't be speeding out there, because speeders cause accidents. I kind of like that kind of mentality. Here's the chief of police in a 4,300 population town writing an article saying the guys in this town write speeding tickets to reduce the traffic accidents, to reduce injuries, to reduce traffic deaths. That's what police officers think that way. Here's a guy in a small town in North Carolina. And that's what he thinks, and that's what he writes. And that's the same mentality I have. So I'm not the only one who thinks this way. I'm not just some guy beating the drum saying they should go out there and write tickets. They do it for a reason. It's not to be punitive. It's to teach people that you can't go out here and drive on our roads, disobey our traffic laws, and expect that that's going to be acceptable in Bedford Township. It's not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable. And for the sheriff's department to get away with not doing that, to me, it's appalling. As a retired police officer, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I went for 17 days and didn't write one traffic citation. And I mean a good one. I'm not talking 1 or 2 over the speed limit. I'm talking 15, 20, 30 over the speed limit. And for us to pay that kind of tax dollars, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just irritating to see that. And I'm going to beat that drum until I'm an old man. So I'm getting there already quickly. Second thing I want to say, I saw something on TV which I want to bring to everybody's attention. I saw something I thought I'd never see in my entire life. The President of the United States sitting in the White House being prayed for by a pastor who was in a Turkish jail for 2 years. The guy actually laid hands on him. And this is what the president said: I probably need more prayer than anyone in this room. And this is the President of the United States saying that. And that guy laid hands on him and prayed for him. I thought to myself, I never would ever see that in my entire life, but I got to see it under Trump. So I'm kind of thankful that somebody knows they need prayer, and so do I. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments?
Hi, Jody Russ, 1273 Winding Way, Temperance, Michigan. I'm your community librarian, so I'm here to thank the Township Board, the Township Board members, and particularly our community for their vote last week in support of the library building. You're going to see some great things happen there that are going to help make the building not only more efficient, but look nicer too. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody for their support. And I also wanted to ask what we need to do to review the library's budget, because I noticed the Township Board had passed the library budget for this current fiscal year with the same numbers that were presented last year, and we had presented a different budget for this year. So now that we know there's going to be some money coming in for some care for the building, we need to figure out how to get back on your guys' agenda to review that budget and make an amendment to that so that we can get it back to where it needs to be to start getting some of these improvements done. So if somebody wants to let me know that, whether that's tonight or sometime, you know, before next week's board meeting, would be great, so we can figure out how to get through that process.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe stop in tomorrow.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance, threefold. First, luckily, I have other things that I'm involved in, but I want to assure the board that I plan to formally address all the concerns that were brought up during the public comment time by the township supervisor during the September 18th meeting. Between the holidays and the changes and stuff, I have not been able to do that. Secondly, as the liaison for the Monroe County Road Commission's Adopt a Road program, I want to give our final report. We have 34 groups that sponsor our primary roads, and out of that, this year's totals were, again, very high. We picked up 927 bags of trash along our primary roadsides. And so I want to thank greatly all the volunteers that get involved with that. The numbers change by each pickup, but there are, you know, it just depends on which group, but we have a large number of people that volunteer for that project. Thirdly, last but certainly not the least in importance, I know that this is the last board meeting for Mr. Frederick. And I want to thank him publicly for all that he has brought to the politics of Bedford Township, although we have not always agreed, through his service in the various offices and the committees that he's been involved in. Mr. Frederick, in my opinion, has brought a distinct and exemplary degree of professionalism. He's brought a vast knowledge from the various past experiences, so there is a lot to be said for the old dog. And a vast, his educational foundation, which is also something that we could never ignore. It put a whole different spin on how he looked at things, and he was willing to share that so that we could have a good viewpoint of why he was making the decisions he was making. He also holds a degree of ethical conduct that is an extremely rare trait in today's worlds and today's politics, certainly. And we should, at least I want to recognize, and I want to thank you, Mr. Frederick, for this service. And I hope that you will continue to be involved in our community and to be a watchdog and look for those things that we need to be attentive to. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Comments from Township board members? Mr. Steiner?
Well, first and foremost, definitely want to thank and congratulate our new full-time firefighters and EMTs that came on board this evening. It's a great addition to Bedford Township, and it's a testament to the commitment of our firefighters, our fire department, and our chief. His whole team, job well done, and I've never expected anything less, and we've gotten what we've asked for and then some. So congratulations to them. Just a reminder to everybody, it's darker a lot earlier, and so it's many of us, it's dark in the morning when we leave, dark at night when we get home. There's children out, there's adults out. And the other day in my subdivision alone, I came around a corner, a curve, and somebody's wearing dark clothing, and I'll tell you what, it's a good thing that I was paying attention because I did not see them until I was right on top of them. So if you're going to be out, think about it, wear light clothing. If you have children that are going to be out, school, whatever, put some light clothing on whenever possible, and also instruct your kids to stay away from the road. Also at this time of year, it's starting to get a little wet, seems wet, but that temperature hits close to that 32, it turns into ice pretty quick. So let's slow down. And last but not least, Lamar, I've got to say, it's been a great ride. You're not going anywhere. We're not going to let you off the hook that easy. Lamar appointed me to my first commission here at Bedford Township. I walked in the door in right around 2000 and it said, Lamar, I'm here to stay, ready to work. And he said, well, when you're ready, and I feel you're ready. And next thing you know, Lamar said, okay, I think you're ready for a board, and he appointed me to a board. And I've been here ever since. Great man for guidance, wealth of knowledge and education that he can give. He's provided good, sound support for us individually as well as for Bedford Township and the board. I also appointed Lamar, or I nominated Lamar to fill in for the absence that took place, and he passed and he was put on this board, again, to the benefit of this board. Sorry to see you go, but there's times where we all have to move on at some point. But again, you know our phone numbers, you've got our email addresses, and I'm sure we'll hear from you. Thanks, Lamar, and
thank you.
Don't enjoy your retirement too much, because we're not going to let you.
Oh.
Lamar Frederick?
Yeah, this is my last meeting. Mr. Montry, you're going to sit on one of these seats up here. I've served the citizens of this community for 15 years, 8 as supervisor, 6 as a commissioner, and this past year or so. It's always been a pleasure. Since I was fully retired before I started, I always made decisions I felt were right for the community. And sometimes I was on the good side of a vote, and sometimes I wasn't. I worked with this guy for most of those years. I'd call him up and he said, well, there's another pithy issue. But I've enjoyed working with that firm for a long time. I've enjoyed working with each and every one of the board members that I've been associated with. We've had some interesting times. We've had some very difficult decisions to make from time to time, but you've got to step up and you were elected to make the decision. I'm involved in a lot of good projects here, library, and some other projects that were of great interest not only to me but also to the board. In closing, last Friday I spent, as you know, I'm a veteran and I'm a member of the VFW. And on Friday morning we were in Jackman Road School where there were about 75 or so veterans who showed up to have breakfast. And the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade all sang and had just a wonderful presentation to us old guys. In the afternoon, we were in Monroe Road School, and they also had a great presentation for us veterans. When I first got here, we didn't get Veterans Day off. And so I kindly suggested to the board that maybe we ought to have Veterans Day off. And we had a couple trustees who said, well, wait a minute, that's a good day for everybody else to come in here and get their work done. And I said, well, I'll just tell everybody you don't like veterans. The next meeting, the first guy that stood up was the guy who was talking about that and said, I move we have Veterans Day off. And so that was the end of it. And lastly, I would say, yesterday, we were at Douglas Road School. And since I'm the senior member, I was entitled to carry the American flag as we posted the colors. So we're walking around the entire gymnasium. And as I come to the very last section just before we're ready to halt, the eagle on top of the American flag caught the net of a basketball. And here I go, whoop. And we were standing there trying to get the eagle out of the out of the basketball net. So it was an embarrassing situation, but everybody had a ball with it, and we had more people trying to get that eagle out of that. So in any event, it was an embarrassing time, but a lot of fun because people were laughing at me, and I figured, what the hell? I guess that's part of life. I will be moving on, but I'll be watching, and if you people, all of a sudden see me come tearing through the door, I'll have something in mind. And I've enjoyed working with each of you in different ways and different opportunities. You, a long time. Rick, long time. Tom, longer than that. So, in any event, thank you very much.
Mr. Francis?
I'd like to echo the sentiments that Rick was speaking about Lamar and some of the comments that Lamar made. I personally have appreciated working with him on this board. We've talked many, many, many times over many issues, and I valued the friendship that we have. I hope you do stop by and keep in contact. I intend to contact you often. And I like you, even though you are an attorney.
Only in Ohio.
Well, I like you in Michigan, so we're fine.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I too was at Monroe Road for their program. It was a very nice veterans program along with my husband who's a veteran. There are many other. I saw Ron Whipple there. I did see you, Lamar, carrying the flag in. Those are very nice programs. If you haven't made it out to one of the schools and their programs, they are very nice. The next board meeting is next week. Just a reminder that the board meetings are back-to-back because of the election. And the Township Hall will be closed on Thursday and Friday, November 22nd and 23rd for Thanksgiving. We'll miss you. We have worked together for a long time, so you better be around. We'll put you on committees, don't worry. I want to congratulate our firefighters full-time. It's a big accomplishment for Bedford Township. We've talked about it, but it's really nice to see it a reality. And to Phil Dale, Captain, congratulations to him. And last, the election went well, very, very busy. It was almost as busy as a presidential election, so almost double the voters came in and the absentee came in. And I want to thank my office staff, both Angie and Nancy, and all my election workers. They dealt with a lot of issues out there. They all did a great job, and I need them all to come back. And if anyone's interested in being an election worker, please stop by my office and apply. Hopefully we won't have one for 2 years, but I can always use new inspectors. That's all.
Okay. A lot of good things going on tonight with the fire department, Phil Dale, Lamar. A couple notes I have here before I say a couple nice things about Lamar. Couple. My beard is for Cancer Awareness Month. I was approached by a group of women who made me cut them a check and grow my beard out. So, and it's Grovember for growing your relationship with the Lord as well. So, snow plowing, we're going to continue the same efforts we had last year with snow plowing in neighborhoods. 5 inches is going to be the mark where we pull the trigger with our seasonal people and Stoneco to try to knock out all the neighborhoods on day one. It's a big task with 127 neighborhoods, but we're going to keep working towards that. I just want to mention with Blizzard Fest, these 3 women, Jewel, Tasha, and Alexi, gosh, sorry if you're watching, Alexa, they've worked their butts off, and I kind of feel like Jewel got beat up a little bit with the community foundation thing. I just want to let her know it was a group decision to go that route. She had experience with it. I thought it'd be a good idea to get involved with Monroe. We are Monroe County, and I think a lot of good has come out of it. Ultimately, after this season, we're going to do our own 501 with the ladies. They're going to get with a tax person and do their own deal, but through it has come a lot of good relationships. The Monroe Tourism Bureau has worked with us and donated money, and they're doing 3 full-page ads, so look for the ads to be coming out. But I just want to let it know that that was a group effort on that. The EDC applications will be presented next meeting. The assessing will be coming on next meeting. And the roundabout, I met with Barry today for just a brief moment to set up a meeting with the road commission and the road group to discuss that and come to a consensus on what direction we want to go with that. Lamar, it has been an honor working with you. You are an extremely intelligent person, and I've learned a lot from you. I really have. We don't agree on everything, and that's a good thing. Craig's got some big shoes to fill, and but it has been a pleasure working with you. With no, I knew you had something gushy to say, don't you?
If they just learn that in Washington and in Lansing, to work together.
That's right.
You don't have to agree, but you do have to work together, because that's why you were hired or elected.
That's right. Well, I better end the meeting, because Mike Grodice called me now from Erie, so maybe he wants to talk about that. So if no further comments, we stand adjourned. Hey, Mike.